Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take a second while they're setting up to thank the people who prepared the food, who fed us. Thank you very much. It's important for me to thank the people who prepare and feed me, so thank you very much. That was really, really amazing food. I will give you all, Charlie, I'll give you that. If you are still in a food coma, you may want to wake yourselves up. This is a great opportunity to engage with amazing educators. I'm lucky to be up here with you all. I was lucky enough to be here a few months ago and walk through all of the schools, and I'm sure they've done that already, correct? Yeah. I think if you haven't done it, or if no matter when you do it and how often you do it, it's as amazing every time you walk through. So I'm going to start off with one question, and then I have two questions prepared. So hopefully you all will have some additional questions for the teachers. One of the things that I've heard from many of my teachers, and when I've been in workshops like this, is that you can see the expression on their face, like, that looks great. What you all do looks and sounds perfect, and it looks and sounds amazing, but that'll never work at my school, or you guys probably never fail, and you guys are probably just always on cloud nine. So I want to just jump right in and ask you, if you guys can just pop around also, is if you can share with folks a time where either in your planning process and or in the delivery of the project, it just bombed. Like, it just fell on its face, right? And you were frustrated. Let's say if it was in the planning process and you were just like, God, I know this is going to be terrible. Or you were really excited and then you started to deliver your project and then it just fell, right? So I thought that'd be a great place to start out, right? Because you guys are amazing, and part of being reflective is what makes you all amazing, I'm sure. So let's start with that. If you can share with them what went wrong, why do you think it went wrong? What did you learn about yourself about that? And then, most importantly, we'll end on how did that prepare you for the next planning session? Okay? All right. Anyone want to start?
I can go ahead and start. Oh, okay. All right, awesome. Okay, so just so you know, I have, oh my gosh, an array of examples of huge mistakes I have made. But one of it was I decided to have students prototype their big sculptural project, and I had ordered this foam that had raving reviews. It was supposed to be really easy to use for all students, and I was like, got it, opened the package, gave it out, and there was just like 5 minutes later, this really fine green haze around the whole room. And the kids are sawing, and it's like on their eyelashes, all over their face, and they're sneezing, and they're like rubbing their eyes in it, and like they're like wheezing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And the kids are like, this stuff is horrible, Miss Charlie. Like, aren't you supposed to be the art teacher? You're supposed to know, like, what is going on? And they're still sawing at it. And I learned not to turn the AC on, because that just makes it worse. And I told them, I says, I am so sorry. I've never worked with this before. I thought we would try it out. And they were just like, yeah, it doesn't work. It's okay. And I think just to think about, like, you know, as you're doing projects, you're going to make mistakes. And those are like your students' most favorite times. They love to see that you're still learning and you're still a student. And that really actually establishes a wonderful PBL culture in your classroom, to know that, like, we're all going to make mistakes. We're going to go through experiences. And that's okay, because we're going to go through it together.
I do. I have one. So this happened to me last year in my 13th year of teaching. You would think that we've kind of had things figured out at this point, but I was really excited about this project that was going to be based around teamwork. Like, that was going to be the main focus. And I was working with a humanities teacher who was also really excited about it. And it was great. We had like project tunes. We had students brainstorming the ideas. It was all student voice. We were so excited about it. And I let the students choose their groups, and the groups were too big. There were about 5, I think I had one group of 8 students, and each group got to choose their own installation piece that they were going to do. So in theory, it was cool. And what ended up happening is that structurally, as a teacher, I was teaching like 10 different projects at the exact same time. And my classroom was complete chaos. And it cost so much more money than I was expecting it to. And what came out of it is that the kids had a lot of fun. They felt like they had their voices heard and got to do something cool. But as a teacher, it was not fun because it was a mess.
I'm going to touch on a couple of things. So last year, I had my 8th graders make, they use SketchUp to make pencil grips for kindergarten students. And I have a 3D printer I use a lot. And I had new filament that's Ninja Flex. Some of you may have heard of that before, but it's flexible filament, which is what the 3D prints were made out of, and your pencil grip should be squishy. Let alone the amount of time that I put into to get my 3D printer to print using Ninja Flex. It was a lot of, we have a really complicated relationship, my 3D printer and I. We spent a lot of time together. But I thought that as an extension to that the students, I'm from a different generation. I went to school to be an engineer, and I think that hand drafting is a bit of a lost art. And some of their handwriting is horrendous. And I thought it would be, have you guys seen how architects write? It's gorgeous. We make fonts from how they do their lettering. And I thought it would be really cool while they're using their pencil grips to do some architectural lettering. They didn't think that was cool. They did not. I think they thought they were back in grade school, and I could see them, that I was losing them. So I quickly just kind of scratched that and just played into what I knew they were excited about, and it was that they had someone they were designing their pencil grip for. And that was like the real thing, is that we made them and we gave them to the kindergartners. And the kindergartners actually do need pencil grips to learn how to hold a pencil. So that was one. The other thing I wanted to just touch on is the dumpster project. I don't know how many other people up here have done a dumpster project. And a dumpster project is something that you make, and it might turn out absolutely gorgeous, and your exhibition people are stunned. But then where does it live on? And it's sad sometimes to see those, and they could be large, they could be large. Like in 6th grade, for example, I do it's a collaborative project with the math, science, humanities, and then engineering, and they made archaic arcade games, and they're gorgeous. They're made out of wood. All the painting and art relates to an ancient civilization that they learned about in humanities. They did math and ratios to do the construction, and then in my class they used Lego robotics to program the Lego Mindstorms to actually keep score. So it was cool. They were interactive. The exhibition was awesome. Like, people were playing the games. But there are, how many were there? I think there were about 20 of them, and they're pretty big. And it was sad that one night, the ones from the year before that we still had, we had to sneak them out so the kids wouldn't see us getting rid of them, because we don't have the space for them. So I just kind of in addition to that, the project was a success. But to always think about where they live on, because a bit of that failure is knowing that hard work is somewhere in a landfill, which is heartbreaking a bit.
Can I answer that one? Yeah. I have 2, the same project. I'll stand because of the podium is in my way. No, that makes me feel weird. 2 in the same project. So last year, my students made alien species that can thrive on a planet that's not in our solar system. 2 things happened. One thing that I hate as an art teacher, when you spill a brand new gallon of paint, because there goes my $30. That's all I see. It's like, oh, $30. I can't respend that. It's gone. So what happened is, a kid grabs it, paint, white, brand new, semi-gloss, bare, everywhere. And I'm like, okay, what do we do? Use it as primer, because the kids had foam heads that they had to turn into an alien species. I'm like, all right, use it as primer. It's white. We'll see what happens. Kids start rolling their foam heads that they're going to turn these alien species into as much as we can to get as much paint on top. But what was beautiful after we cleaned the mess, we noticed like an hour later, the foam started to do this weird kind of melting thing, which like turned into like this weird kind of texture for like scales and stuff for their aliens. So I learned then, like, I guess, embrace certain accidents, and the kids were loving rolling their heads into this big pile of brand new paint. So I also learned to like also embrace like the goofiness, I guess, being around my students. And then the second thing, because I have 104 students a day, half of the 8th grade did this project. So there were 52 24 by 18 posters in which students had 144 characters to explain their alien species. I did the mistake of trying to proofread as much as I can, especially before exhibition. So I'm like, it's midnight. I'm like, you know what? Nope. Let's just print them. Print them all, put them in these frames from IKEA, budget. Hang them up at exhibition. And of course, as you're walking around, you can see all the things that I missed, right? The one art teacher trying to proofread 52 posters. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm turning green now. I look like an alien. And Rob walks up and goes, well, if you can proofread all of them, they're not writing enough. I'm like, oh, Rob, thank you. Like, I don't know. That's what I could think of.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll come back to the category of planning, preparation, replanning, reteaching. So I want to throw that out as one category, and I just want to throw one more category out that came up from yesterday's panel is about relationships, whether they're in the guise of an advisory, whether they're informal and kids just kind of grabbing you in the hallway or sitting off to themselves, and you notice that. So the question I have for you all around relationships is, some people think that they're just born with that skill set, like they just know how to relate to kids and can talk to them and know how to listen to them. Some believe that it can be taught. So what advice would you give to new teachers or to folks that are building advisory programs or wanting to strengthen their relationship between teacher and student? How could they learn to be better in the relationship dynamic? And I want to add just one little spin to it. This topic has kind of come up in a cursory way in a lot of different conversations. Does race or gender or other things like that play into your thinking? Does that help you strengthen your relationships? Does it make them a little bit more uncomfortable? So if you can address some of the subgroups that sometimes can be difficult or more attractive to you as a teacher to outreach to. Okay? So relationship building, and can teachers learn that? How might they go about it?
Hi. So I have a pretty a story that really, like, over my 13 years of teaching, I will remember this girl from last year more than probably a lot of other students. Luckily, she's in the high school now, so they get to have her specialness now. But she was one of those girls that came to high tech totally reluctantly. Sometimes, their parents want them to come in, and they're not, maybe willing participants of coming here. And for her entire 7th grade year, it was, this is stupid, and I don't want to go here, and I don't have to listen to your rules. And so at the very end of 7th grade, I went up to the 7th grade teacher, and I'm like, all right, I'll take her. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, seriously, like, it's going to be my project. I'm going to take her and show her not that high tech is cool, but just that school is a place for her. And I just had this feeling that it was a cry for something. So it started out really, really rough. Like, for the first couple of months of school, it was just constant struggle, her breaking the rules. And I just made a really deliberate effort to remain consistent with her and show her that, like, we are still authority figures in the classroom, but to kind of break up that hierarchy that traditionally exists between teachers and students, as far as, like, I am teacher, you must listen, and I have a place of power. So by trying to transfer some of that back to her and really thinking about what it is that was going on in her life, I was doing some research, what's going on. Okay, single mom, she's home a lot by herself. She was a Hispanic girl. She didn't know who her dad was. She was taking care of a cousin for a really long time during the day. There was a lot of stuff going on that I don't think she ever really felt comfortable telling people. And every day it was Kylie Jenner this, Kylie Jenner that, Kylie Jenner, Kylie Jenner. And my instinct was, to try to teach her like, no, there are better role models in the world. So I deliberately planned a project about like looking at courageous people in history. And, I gave her books on Malala and books on, nope, it was Kylie Jenner. I'm doing my project on Kylie Jenner. I'm Kylie Jenner, Kylie Jenner. And I was like, I had this moment where I'm like, don't fight it, whatever. Let her try and make an argument for why Kylie Jenner should be a role model. And so she had to come up and, kind of speak about that. But at the very, very end of the school year, I got a letter from her, and it just says, I love you more than Kylie Jenner. And so to new teachers, all I would say is that it takes a ton of effort, like a ton. If I told you how much time I had to spend just getting to learn about this girl and, recognizing that she wasn't the girl she puts up a front to be, a lot of the other teachers, no fault of their own, we've got a ton of kids. And I almost tear up a little bit because you can't reach every student to that level. And that's just like an understanding that somehow like you're gonna reach all your students, but just not to the same level. Just kind of recognizing which ones really need you and which ones you can really make an effort with. I knew that like that was going to be my project, and so there were probably a couple others that slipped through the cracks, and I had to just let myself be okay with that and let myself kind of think that somewhere along the lines, another teacher, a parent, they have a stable home life. There's going to be somebody that comes in to support them, but nobody really talks about the effort that goes into that. So I just want to like put that out there that it takes a ton of commitment, but it just truly is life-changing when you can make that connection. She still comes over. Actually, she's gotten in trouble quite a few times for sneaking into my classroom instead of being in the high school. So we're trying to work on that, but anyway.
I have one tip that a teacher had given me that I feel like has really helped me establish close relationship with all my students. And oftentimes as a teacher, some of the emails that I send home cannot be so good to the family members, like, hey, I'm noticing this behavior and I'm having this struggle. Can you help me? And she had said, take the time every week to send a couple just positive emails to the student and CC the parents. And I did that, and it felt good for me, but also I noticed a big difference when my students would come back the next day and I can tell that they read the email, and it was a way of saying like, I see you, and I'm here for you, and I appreciate that you were in my classroom, and I'm going to take time outside of the classroom to write a special note to say that I see all those things. And that's made a really great difference with some of those kind of harder to reach students. So, helpful tip.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I hope this is kind of related. I'm going to say it anyway, though. But we were sitting at a staff meeting a couple years ago, and we were looking at our graduation, like data on our graduates. And on that particular senior year, there were 100 students who graduated, and 99 out of that 100 were going off to college, either 2-year or 4-year university. They were doing some sort of post-high school education. And, we're all there patting ourselves on the back, like, heck yeah, 99 out of 100, that's awesome. And then one of my beloved colleagues, amazing Spanish teacher, Yoli Soler, she was visibly upset. She was crying. And we're thinking like, what are you crying about? Like 99 out of 100, that's awesome. And she said, all I can think about is that one kid, right? Yeah, we got 99 out of 100, but what about that one kid? That's someone's daughter, that's someone's son, that's someone with a life. And it's not to say that everybody needs to go the college route, but we were so focused on the positivity of the 99 out of the 100 that we weren't thinking about that one last student. And for me, when I initially got into teaching, it was about creating a more scientifically literate society, and that wasn't enough of a motivation to stay in teaching. And when she had that raw emotional reaction to this one student, I realized that it had to be about the students, and that I had to see my students as individuals with families, with their own aspirations, and that every conversation I had, it had to be about that one student, focused on that one person and the unique experiences that they have and they bring to the table. And it was so eye-opening for me. And I think, honestly, I'm still in teaching because she had that raw emotional reaction that made me realize, like, hey, the focus has to be the students. And I think as long as we can keep thinking about that one student, and yes, let's keep supporting the 99, but that one student, I want to make sure that we figure out how they can find success too.
I kind of want to address a little bit of the race thing. I'd never thought about it until my wife now, 10 years ago, had to describe, she's Irish, she had to describe who she's dating, and she had to describe it to her grandparents. Grandma, grandpa, I'm dating a black dude from Compton. And it's like, I never heard it from anybody else's mouth. So now, if you say that, if you like close your eyes and somebody said that, I'm sure you would have an image. So I feel like it's very, very important. I feel like it sounds cliche to be honest with my kids. Like, my kids know my wife is Irish. They know I'm from Compton, but at the same time, they also know what they get when they meet me, I guess. We have a rule in my school: you can't pass me without stopping and shaking my hand, making eye contact. And I feel like I know every single kid in my school, but I feel like it's trying to address, you can't touch them all like deeply. But imagine being a 6th grader and an 8th grade teacher walks up and says hello. And he's black and from Compton, right? So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like breaking barriers is important, because the kids get it in, the world is in their back pocket. They can literally type in my description of what I said, and they're gonna get 100 images that I feel like may not look like this. So it's important to kind of, I don't know, address that aloud too, and not apologize for it.
Sorry, one.
Just 2 quick things. One, it's important for me to realize that at our school, I'm at the Chula Vista campus, and we always talk about we have something really special in Chula Vista, and not that it's not special here, but we just always talk about our culture. And one of the things that I'm at the middle school is all the teachers, all the parents and the students always comment on how happy we seem as teachers. Like, all the kids, like, you guys just love each other so much. You're like, always seem so happy. And it's true. And I understand that that's not going to happen everywhere. Like, right now you might be like, well, that's not going to happen. But I just thought it was worth mentioning that the kids see your relationships, and if they can see that you have like healthy, loving relationships with the people that you work with, then I think that sets a culture. I could talk about that a lot longer. The other thing I want to say really quick is that I'm a woman engineer, and you can't be what you can't see, and we're all role models. And like what David just said, like, the image might not be him, but like we're already just being in that role are that example. And I think it's something to not be taken lightly. Like, just you being there and showing them what's possible is really important to know, like, your options for your future.
Thank you for your vulnerability and truth. We appreciate it. Okay, get your questions ready. We've just opened up the conversations around relationships, anything related to that in your school setting, curricula, planning, failure, success, reflection. Can we get a couple questions? Thank you.
I'm curious what professional development looks like for high-tech high teachers, both like elementary, middle, high, like how it's structured, supported, like anything you can speak about regarding your professional development.
Ooh, I'm excited about this one because we tried something different every year. We had at the end of last year, the entire teaching staff had come together and we had to develop 3 of the main topics for the following school year. So, for example, we had school culture and respect, and social emotional well-being, and then project planning. So we had these 3 subjects, and those are going to be your focus for the entire year. And then each teacher broke up into what was their number one most like passionate thing, or the thing that they'd like to focus on. So all 3 topics had groups of teachers, and then within that group, the teachers actually got to develop the professional development, and then sign up for a day and find people to bring in or develop the workshops themselves. So it's very teacher-led. If we feel that our school needs this and we really want this and the students want this, then we try our best to make it happen. And then sometimes the director will bring in certain things as well.
I was actually thinking about, in response to your question about whether relationship building with students is something that you just can do or whether it's something you can learn. I was thinking about our professional development this year and how much of it is around relationships and developing our capacity as educators to connect with students. We similarly chose, as a school, we selected a focus this year around developing our literacy practices, and our professional development has been designed to help us better understand the student experience of learning how to read by talking to students first. So we've used empathy interviews as a way to like collect information that's going to inform our teaching. And I think that like that's one example, but that's kind of a theme that I notice throughout all of the professional development, is that it helps us as educators like develop that capacity to connect meaningfully with students and to like empower them to be to have ownership over their experience at school.
I was just going to point out that logistically how that works is that we meet about 4 days a week, and we have one staff day every month where we're together as a staff. And then we meet for a week to 2 weeks before the school year starts. Our school goes on a retreat together, where we're off campus, and we're doing some more like team building type of activities. So we do work really hard to develop the relationships like we've been talking about as a staff, and really concentrating on listening to each other and respecting each other, and also understanding what's happening in each other's classrooms. And I think that's another thing that kids see, is they know that we care about what's happening with our colleagues on a personal level, but then also academically, and that we're learning always together. So that's something that we focus on a lot.
Each school, though, has a different like routine or different logistics around professional development. So like at our school, we have a half day every Wednesday where we have professional time, and then and that's more like digging into meaty topics. And then twice a week we have meetings that where we run protocols or go over things that are more like logistical. In addition to some, like, we've elected to have more staff days throughout the year so that we can have more time to connect as a staff.
Also, just quickly want to add that a lot of our professional development involves our students, and I think that's true at each of the schools, that I think some of the strongest professional development that we do, students are there and they're giving input, they're providing information, they're helping us hack away at whatever it is we're trying to tackle.
That's amazing. I want to just kind of make one observation that folks come here and they get these shiny binders, and there's a lot of great stuff on the website and PBL and internships and all that. But the theme I keep hearing, and this is true every time I come here, is that you all are stitched so tightly together, right? Like there's a great awareness and a sensitivity to each other as humans, as learners. So there's a strong culture that is put before the PBL work. And I think that that's really important to do this work at a high level. To hear that two of the three the foci had nothing to do with, but it doesn't jump out as PBL, right? It was the psychosocial stuff, it was the school culture stuff, and of course those are essential elements, but that's bravery on your part to say we got to keep digging deeper, we have to wrap this community, we have to wrap our arms around this community in every way possible. So that's really brave work. I know there are folks out here that are at county offices and district offices, and this might seem like, oh, that only happens in the charter world. So if you have questions and you want to frame them more specifically like that, that's how you start to make some changes at your district level, because you have to be able to first start blurting that out. Like our charter school, our teachers are part of a union, and we meet for 10 days before the start of school, all day, right? So we have an institute, and so it took us a while to get to that place to both afford it and to plan it. But before the first day of instruction, they spend 10 full days together. And we have students that come in for some of that and parents that come in for some of that, outside people, inside people. So it takes a while to get to that place. Okay, I'm sorry. Randy said there's another question over here?
All right.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I had to be that guy to ask this question. So in the context of the young people that we serve students who are gang impacted, adjudicated, expelled, starved. And one of the questions that I had was, what supports do you all have for students who may have that experience and in this insulated type of situation have to go back out into those microaggressive, meta-racist environments? And how do you help them cope with that?
Thank you for that question and bringing those students into the building.
At our middle school, thank you for that question. At our middle school, we have a program called Boys to Men that comes in every Friday from 2:30 to 3:30. So instead of students going to X Block, which is like our PE, they will go to this focus group where they get it's a round table. Nothing leaves the circle. That's the number one rule. Nothing leaves the circle. And there's no teachers allowed. I snuck in there because I needed it. I didn't have that program when I was doing my thing when I was back in whatever. But anyway, it's not about me. But yeah, Boys to Men is one thing that works. What I love about Boys to Men is that it happens during school. So 2:30, 3:30, instead of kids feeling like they have to stay after school. But those gentlemen will stay after for those kids who are not willing or not wanting to take that bus ride back into their neighborhoods. They'll ask the guys. The guys are open to dropping them off, or let's go have a slice of pizza, so on and so forth, to get them away from that world. Unfortunately, it's only for our 10 months in school, but it's better than not addressing it at all.
Well, and I think you heard also that the teachers have a really high awareness of when they see someone shutting down, reacting, that there's the propensity to go underneath that. Yeah, but that's a really brave question that it has a lot of different responses to. I could interject just quickly because at our school that we spend a lot of time and with staff, and we have support staff, folks on staff that have had some really amazing life experiences that know how to read those situations before they even start coming up. So it is also about who you bring on as staff, right? Because districts, and I worked for San Francisco County for 6 years. I know how it's difficult to get the right people on staff for something like that. So we have to look beyond traditional silos of like your credentialed area and whether you're classified or certificated and things like that. So thank you very much for that question. Yes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to, and I think they mentioned this yesterday at one of I don't remember who mentioned it, but we do advisory home visits, which gives us a really great insight into some of our students' lives that you wouldn't necessarily get just kind of seeing them in the classroom. And we use each other a lot. So if I have a student who I'm just not relating to, but he's my advisee and I understand that he's going through some stuff at home. I might know that, Spencer, who's our dean, works really well with doing restorative practices, or, one of my other colleagues is a Latino male and he can speak Spanish, and that would be someone I might work with. So just kind of knowing each other's strengths too and working with each other on that. And because we are a smaller school, we're able to really work around some stuff like that. But the home visits are really insightful.
She just said the word restorative practice, and I just wanted to mention, not necessarily directly to your question, but I thought it's related enough that at my school we've been really focusing on restorative justice and having circles. We're always in circles, and we always laugh about we're always in circles. But it is what we've been seeing is the students have been coming to us and telling us about issues that are happening socially or emotionally, and asking if they can have a circle. And I think that just speaks really highly. And if you're not aware, know the reference that I'm talking about, if there's, it could be social, emotional, it could be something discipline related, but we will call either a circle with just the students or teachers and students, or even bring in parents, and then we talk about what happened and what they were thinking at the time, and then how do you make it right with the community. And it's been really great to see, and we're all aware of what's going on, and it's interesting how the students take ownership of that and ask for it, and that's a way to resolve. And a lot of times things to make it right are giving back to our community. So it's kind of a great thing, and I know that people at my school that are been kind of at the forefront of doing that would be happy to give much more information on that if you're interested.
Thank you. Other questions? One more question? Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you have any advice when you set up your projects or how you run them, that you ensure that the students end up discovering and learning the standards or the SAT concepts that they're going to need. How do you make sure they get to that information?
I'll scream it. Do it yourself. Do the project yourself.
What do you want to say more?
Do it yourself. Do the project. Is it close enough to my mouth? Yeah, do the project yourself. Seriously, you'll not only does it help you with timing, but it helps you with potential pitfalls and like frustrations that the kids might go through that you can fix, and other ways, I don't know, make it better or take away. It might be too much for an 8th grader, a 9th grader, or so on and so forth, but do it yourself. Do it yourself.
Well, so we're going to go a little bit deeper on this question because we have a high school, and there's a point at which, for some people, PBL is a pejorative. Some people think, oh, that's fun for those kids, or that's great, but there's a time for real learning or serious learning. But those of you that teach, 9th, 10th and 11th, you know that those kids sit for SATs or ACTs or take AP exams, and you're trying to grapple with all of that, especially if you're an English teacher, a math teacher. So this question has come up before, so let's hear from this how you all deal with the complexity of, especially if who's in the high school team here? Okay, so maybe we'll have the high school teachers first jump in. Not that the middle school folks, if you're teaching 7th and 8th and you integrate some of those concepts, that would be awesome. I think that's kind of the heart of your question, is how do you balance those things? Okay.
Well, I teach art. So let's see. I'm a team teacher with a humanities teacher, and through my curriculum, I'm very aware of what the standards are for the grade level, but my content isn't necessarily in like the SATs and stuff. So I know that my teaching partner does do some structured reading and test taking strategies and things like that, sort of outside of the project work that we're doing that's integrated. So we happen to have 2-hour classes, so there's time to cultivate that type of learning as well. So I know she does do a lot of that also.
I know I'm not high school, but I'm 8th grade, so I feel this like tremendous responsibility as an 8th grade teacher to make sure that like I'm their last catch before 9th grade. So I do feel that responsibility even being in 8th grade. And I think there's this sort of misconception that just because we don't have to follow the standards that we don't, and that is truly a misconception. You won't find them posted on our boards with like, students will be able to every day. So like not to that level, but we tend to start like planning projects based on passion or based on student interest or based on, something that is a social justice issue or something that is an environmental issue. And then we kind of work backwards from there. So we try to figure out like, what are we going to do? And what's our essential questions? And what do we want kids to walk away with knowing and being able to do? And I think like 99% of the time, you're going to find that the standards just kind of fall in line. The beauty of not having to follow textbooks and not having to do things in a scripted way is that we do get flexibility. So currently, we're working on a project with the USS Midway aircraft carrier. And so I got to pick whatever book I wanted to teach my kids literacy. And I happened to choose my favorite book, Unbroken. So I got to go pick the book, and it means I'm building the literacy supports, and I'm building the comprehension questions, and we're doing lit circles. We're doing all that stuff. We're just doing it in the context of our project. So we're learning about, a veteran, and we're learning about his experience so that when we go interview the veterans, we, kind of have this background knowledge. We are looking at crash courses on the Vietnam War and the Korean War. There's history. So there's activities taking place that are clearly standards-based. It's just all under the umbrella of this greater project that we're doing. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up too, that it doesn't mean we just, don't follow standards or don't know them or
I feel in no way qualified to answer this question on any sort of broad level, but I can mention what I've noticed, which is that we're actually going over, if you can't tell, we go over data a lot at our staff meetings, and we're looking at our SAT data from last year and previous years, and it's not a focus at our school, right? I'm not going to go in thinking, like, my main focus when I go in isn't how can I increase their SAT score. I'm a humanities teacher, by the way. And so there are pieces that we do incorporate. Each teacher is different, too, so even at a single school site, what one humanities teacher does, another one doesn't, or they do something different. But even without it being a main focus, all of our, I would say close to 99% of our students take the SAT, which when you compare that to other local high schools or high schools across the state, that's an insanely high percentage of students who actually take the SAT. And so we have all of our students close to all of our students taking the SAT, and our scores are comparable to local high schools. So I wish I should have paid more attention to that.
They're actually they're higher on all of the categories
That's
by
what I was
about
going
30
to say,
to 35
but
points.
we're being filmed, and I didn't want to be wrong.
No, that's okay. You can say it.
Okay.
It's higher, and 98, 99% take it, and in
Yeah.
California, 47 to 49% take the SAT, and it's obviously the 47 to 49 who already know that they're going to a four-year school.
Right.
There's no point to pay that. If you, right.
Yeah. So that's the other piece is the students who are choosing to take the SAT at other high schools are more likely ones who are taking prep courses. So we have students who aren't taking prep courses included in that data. And so I think it's even more impressive when you realize that literally all of our students are taking it, and yet we're still scoring above the average of schools in the surrounding area.
Yeah, I would love to build on that with what I hope is a somewhat mildly humorous story. You just saw the background thinking that's always happening for me anyway. So 5 years ago or so, some 4 or 5 years ago, an outside agency came in and asked a group of HTH teachers to do some curriculum writing for them, and they selected some projects where the students had built or created a product or given a presentation or created an experience where the end result was measured according to some sort of like professional standards. Okay, so if I was in this group, and so like my students were doing a photojournalism project, and the ultimate like final assessment was holding it up against professional photojournalism and doing a reflective piece of writing. And the other ones were similar. They came from all grade levels. So we met in this conference room in San Francisco where we were like writing this curriculum for this other organization, and we had to go through and like check the standards that we were meeting for NGSS and for Common Core and all that. And we all thought we were doing it wrong because we were literally just like checking every single box. Because if you start from a really high quality product, and then you're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to hold this high quality product up against the best professional work. Then it was actually, they came in and they're like, no, you guys are doing it right. That's why that's why we are funding this project and all that. But the end result of it was that by simply making kids do stuff that exists in the real world and then holding it up to real world standards, it was so easy. We just went down the list. We were like, yep, because that's where all the standards were written from anyway. That's sort of like what Rob was saying yesterday, which was just start from life and then go see where the standards are. Starting from the standards and trying to find your way towards life that's backwards. You do it the same way the standards were written, which is start from life and then go find where the stuff is. And of course, always do it yourself.
Okay, can I just wrap up real quick, Randy? And I'll just finish with this. That's a really great question to end on, because I think that's what we take back to our sites, to our districts, is how does this work with the other tensions that we have at the site? Mackenzie, I really appreciate the thing that you brought up 2 of the 3 times you spoke about data and having an informed conversation with data. I have my sign off on my email was from the plaque that Obama has on his desk, which is that hard things are hard, right? It seems obvious and simple, but it's difficult to do PBL, to do it well. And when you have those tensions of AP exams and SATs, it's very, very difficult to do all of that. But I think if you continue to have data as part of the conversation and you continue to ask that question, right? Like that's a really courageous question to ask. So I think that, to me, if I'm your colleague, that tells me that as colleagues, you want to wrestle with both of those tensions. So that's a really important piece to end with, I think. And so what I love about this space is that they've created places for you digitally and just through the way that the way this PD runs, is that we can share those findings as you all continue to go through the cohort. So thank you for letting me be a part of this conversation. Thank you all for your amazing work. I know people don't tell you often enough, but kids love you. You change their lives, and they appreciate all your hard work. And you made me cry watching you cry, and that's amazing. And you all do that for each other. So thank you. I'm speaking for all of us. Thank you all for your amazing work and letting us into your professional lives and your personal lives. So we appreciate you all. Thank you.